Hello and welcome to Thought Provoking Tech. I'm Zach, and in today's video I'm going to be discussing the SSD performance for the PaperSpace cloud desktops. PaperSpace has a very interesting product, and I figured I wanted to test it a little bit deeper, so this is first in the part of series on kind of digging deeper into the actual performance of the PaperSpace computers. The actual storage should be pretty much identical between the different machines because that is kind of a static part of the PaperSpace computers. So I have just performed a single instance of the benchmarkings for this test. Whenever I get to like some graphical benchmarking in the higher end computers, as well as just general computer benchmarks, I will benchmark that and illustrate that across the kind of spectrum of what PaperSpace is offering. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with this video. Alright, so the very first test that I ran was PC Mark 8. If you have PC Mark 8, you can run this same test, or I believe you can download the free version, and I think you can run the storage test on the free version, but don't quote me on that. I'm not 100% sure. With the storage 2.0 score, we got a 4,706. So if you have PC Mark 8, like I was saying, you can test this locally and kind of compare your results. The average bandwidth was at 108.7 megabytes a second, which is actually pretty good. So just keep that in mind when you're kind of thinking about possibly moving to PC Mark 8. They have very good results in general, and it's definitely something that is going to allow you to have quick load times in games if you want to use this as a gaming device. But beyond that, to have quick access times to load files, but also, you know, access files, like especially when you're like scrubbing through video in 4K footage. I haven't done a lot of that simply because I don't have a 4K camera. But what I have done is upscale 1080p content to 4K just to test my rig to see how good it would perform if I ended up getting a 4K camera in the future. It's not the same thing as an apples to apples comparison, but it does give a general idea of having the larger file formats or the larger file sizes and how that impacts your disk performance and running over a network versus running locally on an SSD. I also tested on Crystal Disk Mark. And you can see some of the results. I actually tested on 3 different file size tests with a 50 megabyte, 500 megabyte, and an 8 gigabyte test. Technically, they have it labeled as the scientific, the computer term for megabyte, which is not the same. That's why if you buy a terabyte drive and then you load it into Windows, it might only be like 950 gigabytes. It's because of the differences of how the two manufacturers versus Windows measure the storage capacity, where, you know, a disk manufacturer will say a kilobyte is 1,000 kilo, a megabyte, sorry, is 1,000 kilobytes, whereas in Windows, a megabyte is 1,024 kilobytes. So just a little bit of different way that they measure it. But in general, I'm just going to call that megabytes just for simplicity's sake. I wish everybody would choose a standard and stick with it, but I digress. Let's go ahead and proceed with the talk. So you can see that we have the first 2 rows. We have sequential and random test, and these are with multi-threaded and multi-queued test. Below that are the sequential and random for a single thread and single queue approach. So you can see that there isn't a lot of difference between the sequential test. I mean, there's a noticeable difference, don't get me wrong there, but there's not a huge difference. Whereas you have like an 8-fold increase with you have random by having multi-threads and multi-queues. So just a little bit of insight into the actual performance test. This is Crystal Disk Mark. It is entirely free. You can run this on your local machine to have an apples to apples test of what you're actually going to experience from what your local machine is and what you're going to experience on the actual cloud. So the settings that I have here, I've done 9 iterations of each of them, 9 series of tests. And then I have done tests at 50, 500, and 8 gigabyte. You're fine just staying like about 500 megabyte. There's not a lot of difference, as you can see here, between the two. You can test on, maybe your hard drive might have some differences. And now something to test where you might have a weak spot or a good spot in a certain, you know, testing range. All in all, though, you can see that there wasn't a lot of difference between the three tests, but it had very good results overall, especially in the random multi-threaded, multi-queued, as opposed to the single-threaded, single-queue approach. So this kind of coincides because you're not really ever doing sequential read writes for the most part. Most of the time you are doing the random, and the 80 range is kind of close to the 100 range that we got with PC Mark 8. So you can kind of go between the two and kind of say that that's probably where I'm going to be when I'm editing. And I do recommend just like loading Crystal Disk Mark on your local machine and just testing it and seeing how you compare. And it might be better, it might be worse, but you at least will have some insight into the different changes in performance of what you'll expect between your local machines and the cloud desktops. So without further ado, I think that's pretty much it for this video, guys. Thanks for watching. I hope this was informative. I hope you gained a little bit from it. I hope it gave you a little more insight into whether you want to take the plunge and move to a cloud desktop versus a local machine. As I test PaperSpace more and more, I was kind of hesitant with Liquid Sky. I was thinking about still possibly building a new gaming machine. But at this point now, I'm kind of thinking that PaperSpace might actually be a very viable option for a machine that allows me to go on the time. And a lot of that is some of the cool features that it has, such as the ability to run in the browser, multi-monitor support, which is a big thing on my list because I almost always have at least 2 monitors, if not more, in my workstations where I'm actually sitting down working and not on the go. There's a couple different features that PaperSpace really has that really puts them above the bar above the other guys. But all in all, we'll cover some of those different features in the future. The introduction video had a lot of talk about all that, but I'll actually be testing and showing off a lot of different capabilities and benchmarks with the PaperSpace computers. So once again, I hope you liked this video, and if you did like it, consider subscribing. If you do subscribe, or you already are a subscriber and you haven't done so already, hit that bell icon. That'll let you be notified when I release new videos. If you'd like to contact me, you can contact me on one of the social media sites that is on the rotating banners throughout this video, such as Twitter, Facebook, or leave a comment in the description below. Also, if you like the content that I'm producing with Provoking Tech, consider heading over to patreon.com and becoming my Patreon there to support Thought Provoking Tech. Once again, guys, thanks for watching.